Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd family a part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. Today we're going to be doing a quick review of all the football action from Thanksgiving Day. Now, of course, I'm old enough to remember that every year on Thanksgiving you always had Texas and Texas A&M in the afternoon, and then you had Ole Miss and Mississippi State at night in the Egg Bowl, and that of course was before Texas A&M joined the SEC. And then when that happened, it killed that rivalry. But we did still have Ole Miss and Mississippi State last night. Ole Miss won the game by the score of 31-21. Ole Miss finishes the regular season with 10 wins and 2 losses. It's their first 10-win season in program history. Now, there is a rumor going around that was Lane Kiffin's last regular season game as the Ole Miss head coach. I don't know if it's true or not. I think the reason why that rumor goes around and is still going around is because Lane Kiffin has always been one that's gone from job to job to job and never stayed anywhere for a long period of time. But you see, he's won 10 games in only his second season. So if you don't look at the past and leave the past in the past and don't hold grudges because of the past, and you watch Lane Kiffin, he's not the same man he was 10 years ago when he first got into, not coaching, but first made a bad report on himself as far as jumping from job to job and being that kind of person. He's not that same kind of person he was anymore. He's still arrogant and he's still borderline cocky, but he does handle himself a lot better now than he used to. But there's just so many jobs open right now that Lane Kiffin's always gone from job to job, so people automatically assume he's going to leave, and he may leave. I'm not saying that he is or he ain't. I'm just saying you can't think just because he was that way a decade ago means he's still that way. But Ole Miss winning 10 games in his second season, if he stays there for a long time, they'll be a powerhouse for years to come. So we'll wait and see whether or not that was his last game as the Ole Miss head coach. And then, of course, the Bears beat the Lions by the score of 16-14. The Bears won on a last-second field goal. Now, if you recall, the Lions went 0-16 a few years back. They were the first team ever to go 0-16. And now that you play 17 games, a lot of people were concerned they were going to go 0-17 the first year you could go 0-17. But they tied the Steelers a couple of weeks ago, so they cannot go 0-17, but they can go 0-16-1. And then we had the Raiders beating the Cowboys by the score of 36-33. After the Cowboys got off to that 6-1 start, they have now gone 1-3 in their past 4 games, so they're 7-4 on the season. And Dak Prescott keeps putting up good numbers offensively. He had 375 passing yards yesterday, but for whatever reason, the Cowboys just cannot run the football. And the funny thing is, when they do run the football, if they have any success at all, they have it with Pollard and not Ezekiel Elliott, even though everybody thinks Ezekiel Elliott is by far the better running back. They just cannot run the ball when he's on the field. I don't know what the reason is. And then last night we had the Bills beating the Saints by the score of 31-6. If the Bills could play the way they played last night every week, they could be one of the best teams in football. But they look really good one week, and then they look terrible the next week. A couple of weeks ago, they lost to the Jaguars by putting up 6 points, and then last night they put up 31. So they're just too Jekyll and Hyde. If they could just be as dominant every week as they were last night, they'd be one of the best teams in football. And, of course, we've got college football action all day long today. And, of course, we'll also have college football action all day long tomorrow. But a few quick coaching notes, there's a rumor going around that tomorrow will be the last game that Bryan Harsin is the head coach of the Auburn Tigers. If you've followed Bryan Harsin, you know he's a West Coast guy. Of course, he came to Auburn from Boise State. And I honestly, really, in my opinion, I don't think he was the guy Auburn wanted to hire in the first place. I just think they hired him because the fans had given up on Gus Malzahn. They just did not want Malzahn as their head coach anymore. And I don't think Auburn, going into last year, had the intention of firing Gus Malzahn. So they didn't have a backup plan. So when they finally felt the pressure from the fans to fire Malzahn, they felt like they had to. But since it wasn't their original intention, they had no backup plan. So they just hired Bryan Harsin to get the fans to basically shut up and be okay with it. But I don't think Bryan Harsin was ever their plan in the first place. He is a West Coast guy, and of course there's a couple of big-time head coaching jobs available right now on the West Coast. So rumor is Bryan Harsin is heading out west as soon as the Iron Bowl ends tomorrow afternoon, and it would not surprise me at all if that was the case. James Franklin got a contract extension earlier this week. I know I mentioned in my Sunday video that he had said after the game last Saturday that there would be an announcement about his future coming up later on this week, and I think it was Tuesday that it was announced he got a contract for $89 million, and that is the whole contract. That's the whole buyout. You know, a lot of times coaches get a contract and the buyout is 3/4 of what they make, but his is the entire thing. $89 million is the buyout. So if 3 years into it, Penn State decides they want to move on, they've still got to pay him $89 million. And all that was a sign that Penn State was scared he was going to leave, even though I don't know why he would leave when he sucks where he is. And then, of course, Michigan State finalized that contract this week with Mel Tucker, who is getting a 10-year deal for $95 million. Hugh Freeze has received a extension at Liberty, and he's now making $4 million a year. And the rumor is, I don't know if it's official or not. I have not seen that it's been claimed to be official, but there's a rumor going around that came out Tuesday that said LSU has offered Oklahoma head coach Lincoln Riley an 8-year deal for $96 million, which would be $12 million a year. Now, of course, Oklahoma still has an outside shot of making the playoffs, so if Lincoln Riley is going to leave, he wouldn't do it until at least the regular season ends and maybe the playoffs. If Oklahoma reaches the playoffs, I don't think he'll leave, but Lincoln Riley's always one of those hot name coaches every year that he's going to leave Oklahoma. I personally think he likes it there, and I don't think he's leaving, but maybe I'll be wrong. And we also have the rumor going around that Florida is going to name Louisiana head coach Billy Napier their head coach either Sunday or Monday as soon as the regular season comes to an end, and Billy Napier is the guy they claim they want. And then I've been hearing all week long that if Jeff Collins doesn't get fired after tomorrow's game against Georgia, he'll definitely be on the hot seat going into next year and will not save his job unless he goes 12-0 or 11-1, which we all know that's not happening. But I've said from day one, from game one, that Jeff Collins is a joke. He's a clown. He's a glorified cheerleader. But I heard on the radio this past Monday when I was driving to work that Georgia Tech, as of Monday, was a 35-point underdog to Georgia. Now, when you're a 35-point underdog to your rival, then you really suck. But they're no better now than they were 2 years ago. And 2 years ago when that game happened, Georgia won 52-7. So it's probably going to be about the same thing as it was then, if not a little bit worse, because Georgia Tech has not gotten any better at all. But it's Georgia Tech's lowest attendance numbers for their home games since 1989. So that's 32 years. And when it's year 3 of the Geoff Collins era and your fan attendance has dropped off that bad, that fast, that's not good. So obviously the fans have given up on Geoff Collins. So if he does save his job for one more year, he better have an extraordinary season next year, which I just do not see happening. But the reason why I bring up all these coaching rumors is because if you have followed college football for a long time, you know there used to be a time where coaches would jump from job to job to job because to them it's a business. Now there's a few exceptions, but for the most part, for most coaches, it's a business. So you go to whatever job is going to make you the most money. And it used to be you would leave a job in the Big 12 to go, to the SEC, or you would leave a job in the Pac-12 to go to the ACC. You would leave a job in the Big 12 to go to the Big 10 because it was more money. And those kind of things are still going to happen on occasion, especially if somebody can go to a place where, they're originally from, or a place where they played at, or something like that. But for the most part, those days are over because these coaches just make so much money now that if you can stay where you are and just make the same amount of money as you would at a bigger program, why would you leave? Like Penn State giving James Franklin that contract for $89 million. Why'd they do it? They were scared he was leaving, even though, like I said a while ago, I don't know why they thought that. The man's been there 8 years. He's never gone undefeated. He's never had a one-loss season. He's only had two loss seasons. Every other season he's lost 3 games or more. But Penn State still thought he was going to leave. So to make him stay, they're paying him $89 million. Mel Tucker has been at Michigan State 2 years and gets a contract making $9.5 million a year. You've got Hugh Freeze now at Liberty making $4 million a year. Now, if you can make $4 million a year at Liberty, where you're going to easily go 9-3, 10-2, 11-1, maybe 12-0 every single season, why would you leave and go anywhere else? Because if you're making $4 million at Liberty now, and you've only been there a couple of years, who's to say the next 3 years Hugh Freeze don't go 11-1, 11-1, 10-2, and he'll get $5 million a year. If you recall the contract Nick Saban got at Alabama years ago, it was the biggest contract in college football history. And now people are making more money than he got in that deal that he originally got, because these coaches are making more and more money. So you're still going to see, like if Billy Napier does leave Louisiana to go to Florida, you're still going to see that because at Louisiana he has no chance of winning a national championship. So, of course, he wants to win one. So that's still going to happen. So you're still going to see coaches from the group of 5 leave to go to Power 5 jobs. But for the most part, with the Power 5 jobs, coaches aren't going to leave and go from school to school to school because of money, because you can make the money exactly where you are. Luke Fickell is fixing to get an extension at Cincinnati, making $5 million a year. And it used to be you had to have won either national championships or have played for a national championship to make $5 million a year. And Luke Fickell's fixing to make that at Cincinnati. Now, the bad news is, for everybody that likes to go to the games, I think the days of these attendance numbers being 100,000 people, I think they're done. As a matter of fact, I read an article this past Tuesday, and I believe it's Tennessee is doing some renovations on their stadium, and they're going to take away about 10 to 15,000 seats, somewhere along in there. They're not the only stadium that's going to do that. That's just the article I read this past Tuesday. But you will see more and more stadiums doing it, because it used to be everybody wanted to go to the game, because it used to be years and years ago there was only like 1 or 2 games on TV a week. So chances were if you didn't go to the game, you didn't get to see the game. But nowadays, pretty much every team is on TV somewhere. And now you have these TVs that are, 4K, and before long we'll have 5K, and they're high definition. And you can sit on your couch in your living room and see just as good of a view as you can when you're there in person. And it used to be ticket prices for a game were 55, 60 bucks. Now ticket prices for a game are 200 bucks. And the more money the coaches make, the higher the prices are going to go. So I think the days of all these stadiums selling out every single week are going to come to an end for most teams. Now, some teams, their stadiums aren't as big, so of course they'll still sell out or close to sell out. But even some top 5, top 10 teams right now are not selling out their stadium, and it's because ticket prices are just too dadgum expensive. But that happens when coaches get a raise, because the more they make, the higher prices get. And a lot of people are going to look at it and say, you know what, by the time I buy a ticket, put gas in my car, pay to park, and eat, I'm going to spend 300 bucks. And I can sit in my living room and spend nothing and watch the game. So there's a lot of people now that just won't go to the games because of ticket prices. And you can't say you blame them, because it is absolutely ridiculous to pay that much for a ticket. But like I said, the more the coaches make, the higher ticket prices are going to get. So in the next few years, you're going to see a lot of these stadiums that are going to do renovations, and they're going to upgrade. But in the meantime, while they're upgrading, they're going to take out some of the seats, because having 75,000 seats filled in the stadium is a lot better than having 75,000 seats and 20,000 empty seats. It just looks bad on camera when you have that many empty seats. But if you make the stadium smaller, then people look at it and say, oh, it's a sellout. And they're not thinking it's a sellout because there's less seats there than they used to be. So that's what's going to start happening. But if you have any thoughts on any other games from yesterday or any of the coaching rumors going around, please feel free to let me know. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. What do lawyers wear to work? Lawsuits. And that wraps it up for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.